Back to algebra with Miss Swartz. Today we're just going to do some review to kind of get us ready for chapter 2. Chapter 2 deals with inequalities, which a lot of you probably have a really good base of inequalities, and if you can solve equations, you can solve most inequalities, but obviously we'll add some new stuff with inequalities in algebra. So we're just going to spend a day just kind of introing the chapter. Today's going to be really easy. This video is going to be short and sweet, and hopefully you can just watch it, take some notes, and then get started on your homework and be done with that for the long weekend. So let's get started. We're just going to start with something as simple as graphing numbers, okay? Because remember, inequalities, we will graph our inequalities, and it's important that we understand. So these examples are already done for us. You can just write them down in your notes. But it says graph each number. So the number is 3. If we're going to graph 3, we just need a dot on the number line of 3. So it's just a good reminder for us to get us kind of back into that swing of those things. Same thing with -5. We have a number line, and we plot our point at -5. Okay, then our example 2, because we will work with absolute value inequalities eventually, we have to understand a little bit what we're doing here. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. So if I graph that, it would be at 4. The absolute value of -2 is 2. So if I graph that, it will be at 2. So if you need to pause the video to write those down, feel free. That way you can get those in your notes and you kind of understand that. I know it's really simple, but that's a good thing. Hopefully today will be really easy. So we're going to just practice that a little bit. We got a few numbers here. Some of them even have a little bit more of a challenge to them. I'm just going to make a number line, one number line. We're going to go from -5 all the way to 5. So in your notes you can do the same thing. I got room for 6. Okay, so if I graph 6 on this number line, I would just put a point at 6. Very simple. The absolute value of 2 is 2, so I would just put a point at 2. The absolute value of -1 is 1, so I put a point at 1. Okay, so go ahead, work on 4, 5, and 6, where you actually have to solve those first, and then you can graph them. I'll do 4 for you just as an example. The absolute value of 2 is 2. Sorry, -2 is 2, so we would be graphing at 4, so that would be our point right there. So go ahead and try 5 and 6. So if you need to pause, go for it. Alright, obviously that was pretty easy. Wasn't exactly meant to be a challenge, but remind us what graphing looks like. Now we're going to just talk about inequalities. Maybe been a while since you've seen an inequality, so this definition is important to remember. An inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares expressions. So when we were working with equations, we were working with mathematical sentences that were equal to each other. Now we're comparing them, so they're either less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So that's why we worked on our bell work, just to kind of review those topics. So here's an example of an inequality. X minus 4 is less than 14. Okay, we will get to a point where we solve that for what x is less than exactly. You probably remember that looks a lot like solving an equation where we add 4 to both sides of the inequality, and we would have x is less than 18. Okay. Another example here, x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 67. So something we're going to just talk about today is how we would graph inequalities, just as a reminder. Okay, so in your notes, we're going to do these examples. Move this up here. You actually won't have any of these types of problems in your homework today, but it's always good to remind us. So n is less than or equal to -4. So a few things we need to remember. Okay, when we're talking about less than or greater than, we have open circles on a graph. we're talking about less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we have closed circles. So that's one of the first things that we have to figure out. So in this case, we have less than or equal to, so that's going to be a closed circle at -4 because it's also included, because n could equal -4, and we want to shade anything that is equal to -4. Now we want to shade in the direction that makes the inequality true. Okay, well, think about this. Is -3 less than or equal to -4? No. Is -5 less than or equal to -4? Yes. So we're going to shade everything in this direction. Okay. Another hint. If the variable is in the front, like it is here, and it is in all of these in this case, we can shade in the arrow direction. Okay, so if you look at the inequality, whatever way that inequality is pointing, that's the way we can shade, as long as the variable is first. So look at 10 here. N is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, open or closed circle at 2 is what we have to decide. It's equal to, so we know 2 could be a solution. Then we're going to shade anything that is greater than 2. Well, ask yourself, is 1 greater than 2? No. Is 3 greater than 2? Yes. Okay, and our arrow goes to the right, so we're shading to the right. All right, so go ahead and try 11 and 12. These also have equal to symbols. Okay, so you probably should have closed circles, and then you can shade the correct direction. Once you're done with that, you're going to be free to work on page 27 in your journal. That is your homework for the weekend. It's probably pretty easy, so if you get done with that page, you have time in class to work on other things. Please use that time wisely. Have a great weekend. See you next time.